Isla was radiant as she looked at herself in the mirror. The soft light of the lamp enhanced the intense tone of the red dress she had chosen, a fitted model that subtly embraced her curves, highlighting her figure. She had always heard that red was the color of passion, and at that moment, all she wanted was for Mason to see her as dazzling as she felt. He'll be speechless, she thought, a dreamy smile on her lips. With her hair loose in soft waves, Isla completed the look with a bit of makeup, accentuating her brown eyes and giving a touch of shine to her lips. As she adjusted her earrings, her mind was full of expectations. The dinner was a surprise she had planned with care, an opportunity for the two of them to reconnect amidst the hectic routine of modern life. Tonight will be special, she whispered to herself, imagining Mason's expression when he saw her. The image of him smiling and complimenting her gave her butterflies in her stomach. The clock on the wall struck 7 p.m., and Isla grabbed her phone, sending a message to Mason. "I'm ready. I can't wait to see you." The reply came quickly. "I'm on my way, love." The young woman smiled, full of hope, and decided that no matter what happened, it would be a special moment. The minutes passed slowly as Isla waited anxiously. Looking out the window, she noticed the sky turning a soft orange, signaling the end of the day. Maybe he's late because of traffic, she thought, trying to convince herself. But as time went on and Mason didn't show up, the anxiety began to turn into worry. He's always been punctual. What could have happened? Determined not to let insecurity take over, Isla picked up her phone again and tried calling him. The ring echoed in the silent room, but the call went to voicemail. She frowned, the unease growing with each passing second. Maybe he's busy, she thought, but a little voice inside her started to question. Or does he simply not care? After more than half an hour of waiting, Isla's heart was heavy. The atmosphere around her seemed oppressive, and the excitement that had once animated her was now turning into a whirlwind of doubts. What if he doesn't come? What if something happened? She decided to try again. With slightly trembling hands, she called again, the same result. "Mason, where are you?" she murmured, the frustration spreading. The young woman then remembered social media, a place where Mason usually shared moments of his day. "I'll take a look," she thought, trying to distract herself. With a click, Isla opened Mason's profile. What she saw left her paralyzed. A photo of him at a bar, surrounded by friends, but what hit her like a punch in the stomach was the presence of a woman by his side. She was laughing, and the connection between them was evident. Mason had his arms around her waist, and the image conveyed an intimacy that Isla had never imagined he would share with someone else. Isla's eyes filled with tears as her heart shattered. How could he, she thought, the betrayal piercing her soul. In that split second, all the dreams and promises she had built in her mind vanished like smoke. Isla felt a mixture of anger and sadness, a storm of emotions enveloping her. "I can't believe he did this to me," she said aloud, her voice choked with pain. She looked at the red dress, now feeling that the vibrant color represented more betrayal than the passion she had hoped to cultivate. With a broken heart, Isla took a deep breath, feeling that the night she had dreamed of was turning into a nightmare. Deep down, a spark of determination began to shine. "I won't be a victim anymore," she promised herself as tears rolled down her face. Isla sat on the sofa in her small apartment, her heart still racing from the painful revelation she had just discovered. The messages exchanged with Mason echoed in her mind, and she couldn't help but feel a mix of anger and sadness. With the phone screen lit up on her lap, she decided she needed to confront him. The words needed to flow like a rushing river, and even though the truth of what he had done would hurt, she wouldn't allow herself to be silenced. "Didn't you get the invitation? Seriously, Mason?" Isla typed, her finger hesitating over the send button. "I waited for you for over an hour, and you were having fun with another woman?" The following minutes were long and agonizing. The sky was already darkening outside, and the silence of the apartment seemed to amplify the loneliness she felt. Finally, Mason's response came, cutting through the silence like a knife. "Isla, I didn't know. I thought it wasn't a serious commitment," he replied, his message full of excuses and justifications that seemed hollow to her. Isla laughed bitterly, feeling the indignation grow inside her. It wasn't a serious commitment? And you thought I wouldn't care? You left me waiting, Mason, waiting for someone who only exists in your head. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just having fun, he tried to argue, but her words were already echoing loudly in her mind. Fun at whose expense, Mason? I'm not a toy you can pick up and put down whenever you want. This is humiliation, she responded, her voice affected by a mix of anger and sadness. The frustration consumed her, and she felt utterly betrayed. Desolate, Isla threw the phone on the table and let herself fall onto the sofa, not knowing what to do next. The feeling of betrayal weighed heavily on her shoulders, like a dark mantle that prevented her from seeing the light. However, she would not be a victim, not anymore. In a moment of clarity, she decided to seek support from Valentina, her longtime friend, someone who had always encouraged her to be strong. Valentina was at home when Ela arrived, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Upon seeing her friend, Valentina immediately enveloped her in a tight hug. "What happened, my friend?" Valentina asked, concerned. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Isla sighed, trying to find the words. "Mason left me waiting at dinner. He was with another woman, Val. I saw it all on social media." "That's horrible, Isla. You deserve so much more than that," Valentina exclaimed, her voice full of empathy. "Don't let it get you down. You're strong and amazing. Look at you." "I don't feel strong. I feel like I've lost something I never really had," Isla said, her voice faltering. Valentina, sensing her friend's vulnerability, held her hands. "Ela, listen to me. This isn't your fault. The problem is with him, not you. You need to remember who you really are. You're an incredible woman, full of dreams and potential." Valentina's words resonated in her mind like a soothing melody. Ela began to feel a little lighter, as if a part of her was waking up. "You're right. I can't let him define me. I won't be submissive to this situation anymore." "Exactly." Valentina smiled, encouraging her. "Let's do something fun. How about we start planning something for next week? A social event where he and the new girlfriend will be present. You can show up and show him how amazing you are without him." Isla smiled, the adrenaline starting to flow in her veins. "Yes, that's a great idea. I'll get ready, and he'll see that I'm not someone to be easily forgotten." The two friends spent hours talking and planning, while Isla began to outline a plan for her comeback. The determination was growing within her, and for the first time since the betrayal, she felt alive. Isla arrived at the event with a confidence she had never felt before. The tight black dress, which accentuated her curves, was a symbol of her new determination. As she entered the room, all eyes turned to her. Friends, acquaintances, and even strangers observed her, and she felt like a star at an award ceremony. Her heart was pounding, but not out of fear or anxiety. It was a mix of adrenaline and power. Mason was there, chatting animatedly with Fernanda, his new girlfriend. Noticing Ela's presence, he stopped talking, and his expression changed. Ela's confidence did not go unnoticed by Fernanda, who immediately felt out of place and insecure. Ela smiled to herself, feeling a wave of satisfaction. "Look who decided to show up," said Valentina, approaching Isla with a glass of champagne in hand. "You look radiant." "Thank you. Today is my day," Isla replied, winking at her friend. "And you know what they say about special days, right? It's time to shine." Valentina laughed, and the two headed to the bar. Ela was no longer afraid of Mason or Fernanda. She was there to have fun, to show everyone that she was strong and that she didn't need a man to feel complete. Meanwhile, Mason watched from a distance, his expression changing from admiration to despair. He couldn't understand how Ela was so at ease while he and Fernanda felt like fish out of water. Every laugh from Ela echoed in his mind, as if each one was a reminder of his betrayal. "Are you okay?" Fernanda asked, concerned by the silence that had settled between them. "Yes, of course," Mason replied, but his voice didn't sound convincing. He could hardly take his eyes off Ela, who was now flirting with a group of men, laughing and having fun as if the world was hers. "She seems to have recovered quickly, don't you think?" Fernanda commented, trying to hide her own insecurity. Mason nodded, but the truth was that he was feeling increasingly uneasy. Isla was shining, while he felt like a shadow of what he once was. The party continued lively, and Isla decided to approach a group of men who were chatting animatedly. She introduced herself with a charming smile and soon started laughing at their jokes. The atmosphere was light, and the feeling of freedom enveloped her like a cloud of happiness. "Are you new here?" asked one of the men, his eyes shining with interest. "Actually, I'm an old acquaintance of everyone," Isla replied, looking at Mason and Fernanda in the background. "But today, I'm here to make new memories." The men smiled, and Isla realized that she was attracting their attention in a way she had never experienced before. It was as if, instead of being the betrayed woman, she had become the center of attention, a force of nature. Meanwhile, Mason couldn't focus on anything else. He watched Isla and wondered how he had let this happen. The image of her, so confident and carefree, irritated and fascinated him at the same time. He wanted to approach her, but the fear of rejection kept him at a distance. In a corner of the room, Isla spotted Fernanda talking to some people. Something about Mason's new girlfriend's posture caught her attention. She seemed nervous, and Isla couldn't help but feel a slight pleasure in noticing that, despite all her confidence, Fernanda was not as secure as she appeared. In a moment of curiosity, Isla approached the table where Fernanda was sitting. "Hi, Fernanda! How are you?" she asked, with a smile that hid a hint of malice. "Hi, Isla. I'm fine," Fernanda replied, her voice betraying some nervousness. "And you seem to be having fun." "Oh, I'm great. I've learned to have fun without depending on anyone," Isla said, looking at Mason, who now seemed completely lost. "You should try it too." Isla's words struck a chord with Fernanda. She forced a smile, but the expression of discomfort did not go unnoticed. "Yes, of course." Isla walked away, feeling victorious. She wasn't the only one who had been deceived. Fernanda also had her own insecurities. This motivated her even more. If Mason thought he could simply move on, he was very mistaken. That night would be just the beginning of her new life, and she was determined to make it worth it. Isla sat in a small dance studio, surrounded by mirrored walls that reflected her new determination. The sound of music pulsed softly through the room, and she closed her eyes for a moment, allowing the melody to envelop her. There was something magical about dancing, something that had always attracted her, but that had been set aside for too long. Now, she was back, ready to rediscover this passion she had almost forgotten. The instructor, a tall and graceful woman named Luisa, entered the room with a welcoming smile. "Let's get started. Today we're going to learn a new choreography that will challenge all of us," Luisa announced, and Isla felt a shiver of anticipation. It was a challenge, but part of her was excited. She wanted to feel alive again, and dancing seemed to be the way. As the class progressed, Isla allowed herself to be carried away by the music. The steps began to flow, and with each movement, a weight seemed to dissipate from her shoulders. Next to her, some new friends danced, laughing and enjoying themselves. One of them, Clara, approached after the class. "You dance beautifully. Where did you learn?" she asked admiringly. "Oh, I used to dance when I was younger, but I set it aside for a while. Now, I'm just trying to find myself again," Isla replied, feeling a sparkle in her eyes. Clara smiled and said, "You should join us for the next performance. We're performing at the end of the month, and it would be great to have you with us." The idea of performing in public made her a bit nervous, but something inside her urged her to accept. "Sure, I'd love to participate," she said, already imagining what it could mean for her new life. Meanwhile, Mason was struggling with the change he saw in Isla. He had seen her at the event and was perplexed by the confidence she exuded. Now, he was determined to get closer to her again. One of the following days, he decided to show up at the dance class, thinking he could surprise her. "Hi, Isla. Can I join you?" Mason asked, a nervous smile on his face. Isla, seeing him there, felt a mix of emotions but decided to maintain a firm stance. "No, Mason. Here is a space where I'm reinventing myself. I don't want to mix things up," she replied, in a determined voice. "I just want to talk, please," he insisted, somewhat disarmed by her coldness. "I missed you and realized I made a mistake." Isla looked into his eyes and saw the insecurity she hadn't noticed before, but that wouldn't make her go back. "You left me waiting for a romantic dinner to have fun with someone else. I'm not the same as before," she said firmly. "I can't just ignore all of this." Mason hesitated, not knowing what to say. He remembered the Isla he knew, the one who always smiled and was understanding. I'm sorry. I didn't want you to feel that way," he said, trying to justify himself. But Isla was tired of empty justifications. If you really cared, you would have acted differently. Now you need to understand that I'm moving on, Isla asserted, holding her head high. Mason watched her walk away, and a tightness in his chest made him realize that what he had lost was more than just a girlfriend. He had lost someone who truly cared. After class, Isla met Valentina for coffee. They sat at a sidewalk table where the sun illuminated the day. I saw Mason today. He's really trying to get close again, Valentina commented, observing Isla's expression. I know, but I won't give in. I'm feeling so good now, and I don't want to go back to being that insecure woman he knew. Isla replied, taking a sip of her coffee. I need to focus on myself. Dancing is making me feel alive again. Valentina smiled, proud of her friend. That's right, you deserve to be happy, and you can't let him ruin that again. By the way, I heard rumors that Mason is planning something grand to try to win you back. Do you think he's really trying? Isla frowned, intrigued. What do you mean by something grand? Valentina hesitated for a moment before answering. It seems he's organizing an event, something special, but I don't know the details. The idea of an event organized by Mason left Isla thoughtful. On one hand, she wanted him to understand what he had lost, but on the other, it prompted her to prepare a response to match. I'll make sure he doesn't forget me, Isla said, with a determined sparkle in her eyes. The revenge and transformation were just beginning, and she didn't intend to stop there. Isla felt radiant. The new phase of her life filled her in a way she had never imagined. It was as if the weight of Mason and his betrayal had finally been lifted, and now she was free to explore new possibilities. The smile that adorned her face was not just a mask, but a genuine reflection of her transformation. She allowed herself to flirt with other men, each look and each smile reminding her that she was still desirable, that she still had much to offer. On a Tuesday night, Isla decided to go out with a group of friends. The bar was crowded, and the pulsating music created a vibrant atmosphere. Spotting a tall and attractive man at the bar, her heart raced. He looked her in the eyes and smiled, a smile that sparked a confidence within her. Isla approached, and soon they were talking, laughing, and exchanging flirts. You have a way of dancing that fascinates me, he said, leaning closer. I could say the same about you, Isla replied, winking. But I'm not just a dancer, I have many layers. Meanwhile, Mason, who was watching from afar, felt distressed. He couldn't understand how Isla had changed so quickly. It was as if she had transformed into a completely different woman, full of confidence and charm, while he sank into insecurity. What had he done? Why hadn't he valued Isla when he had the chance? With each laugh of hers, his heart tightened, and he knew he needed to confront her. That same week, Mason decided it was time to have an honest conversation. He invited her to dinner, and as they sat at the table, the tension was palpable. Isla, with a serene look, watched Mason as he tried to find the right words. Isla, I need to understand what's happening with you. Why are you so different? He stared at her, the frustration evident in his voice. What happened to the girl I knew? She smiled, a smile that had nothing sweet about it. I finally found myself, Mason. The truth is, I don't need you anymore to feel complete. I discovered that I'm strong enough to live my life without you. Mason remained silent, surprised. He expected Isla to lament, to show the pain of the betrayal, but instead, he found himself facing a confident and determined woman. You can't be serious. I'm your boyfriend. What do you mean by that? You were my boyfriend, Mason, but all that belongs to the past. I'm no longer the girl who waited for you while you had fun with another woman. I deserve more than that. Isla replied, her voice firm but calm. And what do you want? What are you hoping to achieve? Are you getting involved with other men? Just to provoke me? He stared at her, a mix of anger and confusion in his eyes. Provoke? No, Mason, it's not that. It's about me. It's about rediscovering myself, about stopping defining myself by your choices and your betrayal. I'm happy now, and that bothers you, doesn't it? The air around them seemed electrified, the tension growing with each word. Mason took a deep breath, feeling the reality of his actions crumbling around him. I can't lose you, Isla. I can't be without you. The vulnerability in his voice was clear, but Isla didn't let it affect her. You've already lost me, Mason, and that's the truth. I'm no longer a shadow in your life. Now, I'm the protagonist of my own story. she replied, her voice firm and determined. As the conversation continued, Mason's perception began to crystallize. He was facing a woman who had decided not to be a victim of her circumstances any longer, who had found her strength and was now ready to live fully. And perhaps this transformation was what he feared the most. The truth was, while he got lost in his insecurities, Hila was rising, ready to embrace the world that awaited her, free and empowered. Mason was nervous, his mind buzzing with preparations for the event he hoped would be the key to winning Hila back. In the grand hall, decorated with fresh flowers and twinkling lights, he rehearsed the speech that he hoped would make her heart beat for him again. His friends and family were all there, rooting for the two to reconcile. However, Mason's naivety prevented him from realizing that Hila had changed, that she would no longer be the same woman who waited for him in vain. Meanwhile, Hila was preparing for the event in a very different way. As she looked at her reflection in the mirror, she felt powerful. The stunning dress she chose accentuated her curves and seemed to glow under the soft light of the room. Valentina, by her side, winked at her, full of confidence. "You look amazing, Hila. Today is your day." Hila smiled, feeling the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Today, I'm no longer the victim. It's time to show Mason that he has no power over me." When she arrived at the event, everyone's eyes turned to her. Mason, seeing her, felt a chill in his stomach. He greeted her with a nervous smile, but she simply ignored him, focusing on greeting the other guests. The relaxed and festive atmosphere began to change when Hila asked for everyone's attention as she picked up the microphone. "Hi everyone. Thank you all for being here. Today is a special day, not just for Mason, but for me as well." Her voice was firm and clear, while intrigued looks turned to her. "I know many of you are here to witness a grand declaration of love, but I have something to say." Mason exchanged nervous glances with Valentina, who was in the audience, knowing what was to come. Meanwhile, Hila took a deep breath and continued. "In the past few months, I've gone through a transformation. Life has taught me that I'm stronger than I thought, and to be honest, I'm no longer that woman who waited for a Prince Charming." The room fell silent, all eyes turned to Hila, while Mason began to sweat. "I discovered that love shouldn't be a bargain, and that no one should feel undervalued. Mason, you betrayed me, and I won't let that go unnoticed." A murmur spread through the crowd, and Fernanda, who was beside Mason, turned pale. Hila looked directly at her. "Yes, Fernanda, I saw the photos. You two thought you could hide the truth from me, but the truth always comes to light." Fernanda, embarrassed, began to slowly retreat, trying to hide among the guests. The atmosphere became more tense with each word from Hila, who showed no signs of backing down. "I refuse to be the woman who stands in the background. I'm strong, I'm capable, and I don't need you, Mason." Mason, paralyzed, felt the gaze of everyone on him. The humiliation began to settle in his chest, while Hila continued. "Today, I close a chapter of my life, a chapter that made me feel less, but that now drives me to be more. From today on, I'm the protagonist of my story." Applause began to echo through the hall, and Hila felt a wave of empowerment envelop her. She was finally free, not just from the betrayal, but from the insecurities that imprisoned her. Mason, on the other hand, found himself isolated, the disapproving stares of friends and family weighing on his shoulders. Hila ended her speech with a radiant smile. "Thank you all for being here. And remember, never let anyone tell you that you're not enough. Let's celebrate the freedom and strength that we all have within us." The applause became deafening, and Hila stepped away from the microphone, feeling lighter than ever. To the sound of the music that began to play, she started to dance, her movements full of grace and strength. Mason, in shock, watched as people approached her, offering support and congratulations. He realized, at that moment, that he had lost not just a girlfriend, but a woman who had found her true essence. Hila was radiant, surrounded by friends and new admirers, while Mason shrank into a corner, beginning to understand the consequences of his actions. She was free and victorious, dancing as if the world was hers, and it really was. Now that you've heard this surprising story, take a moment to reflect on your own experiences. Have you ever gone through situations where the truth behind an act seemed crueler than the act itself? What have these experiences taught you about trust and expectations? Remember, Every challenge can teach us something valuable if we're willing to learn from it. Share your reflections and experiences in the comments. How do you deal with disappointments, and what have you learned from them? If you want to keep exploring more of these themes and not miss any of our stories and insights, be sure to click on the video that's appearing on your screen now. In my opinion, this is one of the best stories I've ever told. And if you liked the one you just heard, you'll definitely love this other story too. So subscribe to the channel, click on the video on your screen now, and I'll see you in a few seconds.